as well as affiliates across the country. For 15 years, Ashanti Welcome everyone to our plenary session, The Ongoing Fight for Women's Freedom and Reproductive Rights. I'm Jess Cruz, a consultant with Gain Power, but I'm also an organizer trainer with a focus on state and local candidates, but especially women candidates. So I'm really excited to be with you all for this plenary session during Powering Blue in 22's conference. This is a virtual conference marketing and networking event really meant for us to come together as a progressive political community and brought to us by Gain Power. We're gathering democratic and progressive groups across the country, from nonprofits to campaigns to PACs to consulting firms, cultural content makers, and change makers. And we're here today to talk about women's rights. We know that these have been under attack for years. We have legislation in Texas and Mississippi that virtually bans all abortion. We have the Supreme Court getting ready to overturn Roe v. Wade precedent. But it's not just abortion rights that are on the line. We have gendered attacks against women. We have folks questioning the legitimacy and electability of our women leaders. And we have elected women who are in office that are being harassed. So there's a lot at stake this year. There's a lot at stake next year in 2022. But we have a lot of great organizations that are leading the charge and working to make sure that we support women across the country. So I'm excited to be with you all today and with some of these top leaders at women's organizations. They're going to talk to us about how they are supporting, protecting, and helping in 2022. And our first speaker today is someone I'm very excited about, Ashanti Golar. She's the president of Emerge, the only organization dedicated to recruiting and training Democratic women to run for office. In this role, she leads the organization and steers its overall strategy and direction, overseeing a national staff as well as affiliates across the country. For 15 years, Ashanti has been a grassroots organizer and activist for women, communities of color, and progressive causes. She has experience in building coalitions, program development, and community and political engagement. Prior to coming to Emerge, Ashanti worked at the Democratic National Committee, United Way. She was a political appointee in the Obama administration and at the 2012 Democratic National Convention Committee. Ashanti is recognized as one of the She the People's 20 women of color in politics who would play an impactful role in the 2020 elections and beyond. She's also the founder of the Brown Girls Guide to Politics, which was named one of the top political podcasts by Time Magazine and Marie Claire. So we're so excited to have you, Ashanti, and I'm going to let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jess, for everything that you do to uplift women, and the same for Amy and Tamia and the whole Gain Power team. Thank you so much for having me today. And thank you to all of you in our progressive and democratic community who are here. So a little bit about myself, and thank you, Jess, for that awesome introduction. But I'm Ashanti Golar. I am the president of Emerge. We are the nation's premier organization for recruiting and training Democratic women to run for office. I became the president of the organization in February of 2020, and I have the honor of being the first Black woman to lead Emerge. But my story with Emerge starts in 2006 because I am a co-founder and founding board member of Emerge Nevada, my home state. So my joke is that I'm not new to this, I'm true to this. I fundamentally believe in everything that we do at Emerge to recruit and train Democratic women. And I saw it in my home state because Emerge women helped make Nevada, their state legislature, the first woman majority state legislature in the country. And that is what we do, our entire team. We wake up every day because we know that women's representation is so needed in our country. There's 520,000 elected offices in this country. Men occupy about 75% of those offices. Women, we're 51% of the population. We just think we should hold 51% of those offices. We celebrated 15 years at Emerge in 2020, and we created our Emerge 2035 goals. And they center women of the new American majority, Black, Brown, and Indigenous women, young women, unmarried women, LGBTQ women. Because the fact is, when we look to the future of our country, it's the new American majority that will be the majority. And at Emerge, we wanted to make sure that we were doubling down and training those women to run for office now so that we have the representation that our country, that our communities really need. But with us centering the new American majority, that means at Emerge, we are also centering equity and justice. And that is across our organization. That includes our hiring processes, our policies, our benefits, and we're even updating our curriculum at the moment to ensure that equity and justice flows through everything that we're teaching our women. Because what we want to do is make sure that we are creating community-based candidates. And that means that they have to also understand the people in their community that they're going to not only be asking for their vote, but representing them as well. Throughout the pandemic, it has just really been an honor to wake up every day and do this work. It is what gives me joy because we see that our basic rights are under attack and women are leading the way and they become more important every day. From reproductive freedom to voting rights, everything that we know is changing. And when we look at women, especially women of the new American majority, they are our best line of defense. And we have been seeing that in these past few election cycles. Voters are really excited about women candidates and especially women candidates of the new American majority. When the pandemic hit and I looked around, it was very evident to me that women were going to save the day. We started talking about how leaders matter, and especially women leaders, to be able to see how they were leading their community when at the time we weren't getting the leadership that we needed from the White House. But it wasn't just how they were leading our community. It's how they were really reimagining what things could look like, how they were reimagining education, how they were reimagining criminal justice reform, how they were reimagining healthcare. This is what we need in our country. At Emerge, we've trained over 5,000 women to run for office through our signature program. And I'm very proud to say that we currently have over 1,100 Emerge alums serving in elected office. And that includes Deb Holland, our first Indigenous Cabinet Secretary, Rachel Rollins, who was just confirmed to be the first Black U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, all the way down to the women who are leading Boston, from the new mayor, Michelle Wu, to the majority of the women who are on the Boston City Council. We focus on making sure that we have women in elected office everywhere. So for all of you who are watching, we would love to have you become a part of the Emerge Network. That can include running for office yourself, coming to work for us at Emerge. We have job opportunities listed on our website at emergeamerica.org, or that just means doing what you can do every day to uplift and support women candidates. And that even includes asking the great women in your life to run for office. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ashanti. I just want to emphasize 1,100 women have won their races.
1,100 currently serving in elected office. And we've had 5,000 women that we trained, and more than half of them have run for office and won. So the Emerge program is effective. We have a powerful network of support. And I love the fact that the other women that you're going to hear from later are some of our partners at Emerge, because we cannot do this work alone. And I'm so excited to have Emily and Heidi and all the other women that I get to do this work with. They make it so much better when I'm able to work with fabulous women who want to make sure that we're changing the country.
Awesome. And before you go, just one question. What's one piece of advice you'd give to the folks on this call who are maybe?
So for a piece of advice, I always hear people who are like, I'm thinking about my next step. I'm thinking about my next step. For me, one of the things that I always did is I just soaked everything in where I was at. And when I was learning, when I was growing, when I was asking other people for advice, that made me know what the next step should be, because I felt fully prepared to take that next step. So just really be excited about where you are and know that it is an opportunity. I did not wake up the president of Emerge at all. My first job in DC was as the executive assistant to the political director at the Democratic National Committee. So I was an assistant. That was my first job. And now I lead a national women's organization, which I never expected, especially when I returned the email asking me to come to an informational meeting about Emerge Nevada. I didn't go, yes, I'm going to lead Emerge one day. I was thinking about all the great women that we could impact in the state. And now, because of that, my nieces and nephews get to grow up in a much better Nevada than I did. So that's my main piece of advice, is know that you're there for a reason and just learn it all, soak it up, and then those next steps will present themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm excited to introduce our next speaker. She's someone I know from my time working at Emily's List. Emily Kane from Emily's List, the executive director of the nation's largest resource for women in politics. Previously, Emily served in the Maine state legislature for 10 years, both in the House and the Senate, and was the youngest woman in state history to serve as the House Minority Leader. In 2014 and 2016, Emily ran for US Congress in two of the most competitive House races in the country in Maine's 2nd District. While she did not win either race, her leadership definitely did not stop there. She went on to be the Chief Strategy Officer of History IT, a Maine-based women-led tech company, and then joined Emily's List in 2017, where she has overseen record growth in the organization's size and impact. Emily lives in Orono with her husband, Danny Williams, and is proud to be a member of the University of Maine System Board of Trustees. Emily, so excited to have you with us. We've talked and we've mentioned that Texas and Mississippi have legislation. There's the Supreme Court case going on. Can you talk to us a little bit about how Emily's List is addressing this time and what your organization has plans for in 2022?
Absolutely. And just let me first say, it's so good to see you, my friend, a former Emily's List team member, continuing to make such a positive difference in the world. It makes us all very proud. And thank you to Amy and Tamia and everyone who worked hard to bring us all together today, to have this conversation and help so many of you get connected to what's next for you. Maybe it'll surprise you. Maybe it's something you already knew would be on your career to-do list, but maybe something will strike your fancy today that catches you off guard and creates a whole new world of opportunity. Your question is really important about the Supreme Court, about what it means for our work at Emily's List, and especially when just in the last hour, we've seen breaking news that the Supreme Court has continued to uphold the terrible and dangerous Texas law, while at the same time leaving open opportunities to continue to challenge it. It's a tough time for people in America who need reproductive health care, who want to be able to make decisions about their own bodies. But one thing that I know, and that Emily's List has known for more than 35 years, since we were founded in 1985 by a woman named Ellen Malcolm and her friends, is that we need to build political power for women. And we do that by electing democratic, pro-choice women to office. That's how we create that first line of defense in ensuring that women and all people can maintain their reproductive freedom. At that table of women all of those years ago, there was no one named Emily. And well, that does now make me Emily from Emily's List. It's just a happy coincidence. And for those of you who are watching who don't know a lot about Emily's List, we are the nation's largest resource for women in politics. And for now, since 1985, we have done a ton of work. We just welcomed our third president, LaFonza Butler, and our work in the Emily's List community are as engaged and committed as ever to that same mission that we've had since day one, to elect democratic pro-choice women. And since 1985, we've helped elect women up and down the ballot and all across the country, including the country's first woman as vice president, 159 women to the US House, 26 to the US Senate, 16 governors, and now more than 1,300 women to state and local office. More than 40% of the candidates that Emily's List has helped elect to Congress have been women of color. And after the 2016 election, since then, more than 60,000, yep, you heard me, 60,000 women have reached out to Emily's List to say they want to make a plan to run for office. They want to lay that groundwork for the next decade of leadership change for candidates for local, state, and national offices. We train, we recruit, we endorse and support women who will be champions, not only for reproductive rights, but for voting rights and the fight to sustain and protect our very democracy. So right now, when all of these rights are under siege, we're going to keep doing what we do best, which is electing these women to office and supporting them with early money and the best team in politics. I have to tell you, you might have heard me just say early money. That's because that's part of our name. I said there was no Emily at that table, but Emily is an acronym. It stands for early money is like yeast. It makes the dough rise, it raises the dough. And what that really means now is we help women build those strong campaigns, help them get early support and provide them with early support that then helps them be taken seriously in this crazy world and win. And we know, look, 2022 is not going to be easy. I will never tell you that it would be. But we also know the good candidates running in tough races can make all the difference. And that's why we've already recruited and are supporting women like Sherry Beasley in North Carolina, Val Demings in Florida, and Valar Cush in Pennsylvania, and many others. Those women are running for the Senate, but there are many more. It's why we're so focused on electing more Democratic pro-choice women governors, like my governor here in Maine, Janet Mills, running for re-election next year, Governor Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. And just today, Emily's List rolled out an endorsement of Tina Kotek out west. And then, of course, yesterday on her birthday, we endorsed Stacey Abrams for governor. We need women in all of these offices to make the difference, particularly when it comes to access to abortion. But let me say this, and I'm biased, I admit. I spent 10 years in a state legislature here in Maine. And what we've seen this year is that state legislatures are really where this battle on choice is being waged by those who want to take our rights away. They are focused on undoing the laws, not just what the Supreme Court is doing, but what happens at the state level. That's where you've seen Texas and Mississippi and copycat laws all across the country. And that's why at Emily's List, we're so committed to recruiting and supporting and electing and funding women to hold and create majorities in legislatures where these decisions are getting made. We know that the hope is in the states for this work. And that's why we're so focused and so excited to partner with Emerge, with Planned Parenthood, with others who are on this call and organizations across the country, because this work has to be done. There's too much work at stake. There's too much at stake and there's too much work to do to play small. So we're going big. And we know that the majority of Americans believe in Roe and a person's right to make their own healthcare decisions. And we plan to hold those anti-choice Republicans accountable. Emily's List is excited to be here today. I'm excited to be here with all of you. And I just want to say to you, this is exactly the time to get into the work. If you're mad about what you see on TV, go work for an organization that's doing something about it. If you're mad about what you see happening to our democracy or with abortion access, put your time and energy and your talents into making a difference by finding that job, maybe today, that will actually help make that difference next year and in the years to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. And with that, before you go, is there one piece of career advice you'd give to folks who are seeking a job on this call?
You know, it's great. And I think my advice, I think it's a good question. And it's something that builds on kind of what Ashanti was saying, which is you need to follow the path of what you care about and the impact that you want to have, not chase the specific title or organization. There's not a one-way path to get anywhere. I will tell you, I have a degree in vocal music education. I thought I would be a music teacher, maybe a school superintendent, and I'm the executive director of the nation's largest resource for women in politics. I was never in student government and never took a political science course, and I was elected at the age of 24 to represent my community for 10 years in the Maine state legislature, holding some of the highest positions available to me then. I was already qualified to run for office, and so are you. You are already qualified to go work on campaigns, to go work at political organizations or policy organizations that make a difference. My advice to you is to follow that path. What is the difference you want to make? What are the things you care about? And if you're being true to that, you'll never actually feel like you go to work, even when you work hard. And you'll have a career and an impact that's even greater than you could ever imagine. Oh, and also don't go to law school unless you really want to be a lawyer. That's my other hot tip for the day. I'm so glad to be here and happy to, and hopefully Emily's List will be a place that all of you want to be a part of someday. Jess can vouch. It's a great place to work and a great place to create more opportunity for yourself. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Emily. And just to echo, don't go to law school unless you want to be a lawyer. You don't have to.
And there's nothing wrong with being a lawyer or going to law school, to be clear. That's awesome. But you don't have to go to law school to be successful and have a career in politics or policy. You should only do that if you want to be a lawyer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm excited to introduce our next guest, Jenny Lawson, the Vice President of the Organizing and Electoral Campaigns Department. She's been part of the Planned Parenthood team since 2012, where she previously served as the National Campaigns Director at Parenthood Action Fund and Planned Parenthood Votes. Jenny has worked in progressive politics and community organizing since 2000 in states like Florida, Virginia, Oregon, and Washington. As part of her early grassroots organizing work, she led ballot initiative signature drives on redistricting reform in Florida, fought for minimum wage increases, and advocated for predatory lending reform. Jenny lives with her 3 kids and husband in Alameda, California. I'm so excited to have a fellow Californian on the call. Jenny, I'll let you take it away.
Hi, thanks folks for having me. I'm so excited to be in front of hundreds of people who are excited about the movement and are excited about chipping in and learning and growing and being a part of the solution. I work for Planned Parenthood, Action Fund, and Votes. I've been at the organization for almost 10 years, which is a little bit shocking to say out loud. I've been doing movement politics for about 20 years. I'm a little older than I look. I have a lot of gray hair. And I am excited to talk about what's happening this cycle. So I think you've heard from Jess, you've heard from the earlier speakers. Make no joke that in 2022, reproductive freedom will be the center of this election. 4 months before the election, Roe v. Wade, the backstop, and Casey, the federal protection that enables states to provide access to abortion and stops them from banning abortion, and is our federal protection, has a potential to go away. This morning, the Supreme Court just ruled on Texas, which was a case that was happening, that is sort of happened before the Mississippi case. Texas, as folks have been following, potentially is this state law that bans abortion prior to cardiac activity, which usually happens about 6 weeks into a pregnancy, and has a very tricky bounty hunter provision that allows anyone in the nation to sue anyone associated with anyone accessing abortion in Texas. The consequence of that bill has been there are no abortions happening post 6 weeks in the state, a state that normally sees 55,000 abortions a year. We are now 3 months in to no abortions after 6 weeks, and women having to leave the state and go to New Mexico, to Oklahoma, to New York, to Vermont, to Colorado. We've seen folks across the country trying to access services. The Supreme Court today basically let that stand. There are still no abortions going to be provided in Texas. What they did was not enough to provide relief. And so we still have women suffering, people suffering, because they are unable to access a constitutional right in the state of Texas. That is what is happening in this country. And that is what was just affirmed today. What you heard last week was oral arguments on a bigger case that undermines the core essence of Roe v. Wade. And essentially, if the Supreme Court acts in the way that we predict it will, because of the oral arguments, because of what they just did in Texas, states will be allowed to ban abortion after the ruling, and that will likely happen in June. Then, 4 months later, we have an election. We have a job to do. And at Planned Parenthood Votes and Action Fund, we are going to take the reckoning and the earthquake-shattering news of rights being rolled back and taken away, and we are going to pivot to action, and we are going to make sure that the people who are elected to serve us and be a part of our government actually support reproductive freedom. And we are going to make sure that our voice is louder than anything they have ever heard before. And we need an army of people to join us. 80% of Americans want abortion to be illegal. There is not one single state in the union where banning abortion is popular. SB 8 and the Supreme Court has opened people's eyes to the fact that we can't wait for the courts to save us. And our job is to channel the rage into action, into policy, and into power. And that is at every level of state government. So I tell you this story of the Supreme Court trying to undermine our rights. We should be outraged. The federal government is trying to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, and we are galvanizing folks across the country to make sure that that happens at the federal level. Additionally, states are trying to do the same thing as Texas, and we are stopping them at every turn. Yesterday, we stopped Arkansas from putting forth a special session to do just that, to bring about a copycat law. Arkansas, of all places, we stopped that from happening. Bills have been filed in Ohio and in Florida. They're about to be filed in Idaho. They haven't even really started state legislative sessions. We have 50 states where we have to be ready to fight tooth and nail every step of the way, because Republican legislatures are looking at what the Supreme Court may do, and they are preparing, and our champions and allies are doing the same thing. So our fight starts now. It started 10 years ago. It starts with making sure that states are prepared for the inevitability of what the Supreme Court is about to do, and we need all hands on deck. What's really critical, and the way we are thinking about 22 and the midterms, is once Roe v. Wade gets undermined, and once the Supreme Court allows for states to ban abortion, which is what is likely to happen, it's not like a light switch that gets turned on. It's not like all of a sudden abortion goes away in a bunch of states. Each state will have to do something to either protect or limit access to abortion. So our fight goes state by state by state by state. And what is essentially critical in this midterm is that we have champion governors in the places where abortion is in question. It makes the governor's races in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Minnesota, in Pennsylvania, in Nevada, in Maine, in Kansas, in Texas, so critical, because those folks are the backstop. They're going to be the ones that say, no, we do not believe in banning abortion. We support reproductive freedom and women's access to healthcare, and we are going to make it so that that is possible to happen in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Minnesota, in Nevada. If Governor Whitmer does not win in the state of Michigan, there's a pre-Roe abortion ban on the books that could potentially go into effect. And without her as a backstop, Michigan could ban abortion. This election is for all the marbles. It is for everything. And we need all hands on deck and every ounce of energy that anybody has to say no and draw the lines in the sand. And it really does start at the state level. So as Planned Parenthood Votes and Planned Parenthood Action Fund, we will absolutely be paying attention to holding the Senate. It is critical. We will be paying attention to holding the House, also critical. But if Roe v. Wade gets undermined or gutted, it is a state by state game. And it is essential that we maximize the number of governors who are pro-reproductive health care. And we get as close as we can to flipping, if not flipping chambers, in as many states as possible. It is about maintaining access to healthcare in the wake of a disastrous Supreme Court, and that is what will be center. Here's my good news. If I have any good news, I don't know, it sounds really crass at this moment to say good news, but we did polling with our partners, Emily's List and American Bridge earlier, and we will be doing more. And here's what I learned from that polling, and you might say polling schmoling, like who knows if polls are actually accurate, but I will say they are directional. And we did polling recently that showed that abortion and access to healthcare and access to abortion was the top issue by like 20 points as folks are thinking about how they're casting their ballot and whether they're going to cast their ballot in 22. And that was with a mobilization universe. That was with our base. That was with the people that we need to vote, Black and brown and young people. Abortion was top of the list. And I've been doing this stuff for, a long time, gray hair, like I said earlier, a long time. I've never seen abortion at the top. It's always been around about the middle. People care deeply about Planned Parenthood. They care deeply about women being in power, and they care deeply in theory about it. But abortion doesn't seem to be the threat, right? It hasn't yet. Now it is at the top by 20 points. And it is a mobilizing issue, and it is an issue that caused swing voters to switch their vote in this last poll. I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged that we have nowhere to go but up. Only 33% of those folks thought that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned. I'm here to tell you that number's got nowhere to go but up before the election. And it will be an energizing and galvanizing thing. And it is essential. It is essential that we have an energized electorate, and we have an energized and galvanized electorate for 22, and abortion and access to abortion. And frankly, the outrage that they have never seen before is essential for us to win and beat back the winds of change in a midterm election that is going to be challenging. So if you're up for it, we got a lot of jobs, and we got a lot of jobs in states, and we got a lot of jobs in nationally. And if you want to help in any kind of way, it is an all hands on deck moment. And I can't express how critical it is. Protecting our basic rights and making sure that the slippery slope to repeal our rights, not just abortion, but LGBTQ rights, marriage rights, other rights that will fall if this one does. It is really important that we are fighting with every ounce of power that we have. And I believe we can do it. So that's what we're up to.
Thanks, Jenny. You were right. There's a lot of work we can do in states, and I'm really excited, and I'm in to get to work with you. Before you go, I also want to ask you, what's that one piece of career advice you think is really important to share with our group today?
Yeah, I underscore what Ashanti and Emily both said. I think milking everything that you have where you are, being very thoughtful about what you're learning in the experiences that you're having. I think the other thing I would add, I really believe a variety of experiences in states outside of DC and building organizations, whether they be campaign organizations or permanent organizations, but being a part of building something sustainable is really, really critical. And I think I'm always excited when I get a resume from somebody who has done a wide variety of things, who's done a little bit of comms and a little bit of field and a little bit of everything and done it in really tough places, because it means that you know how to talk to real human beings, you know how to talk to real voters, you actually have a view of the world that is broader than maybe just Beltway or academia. And so the more diverse kinds of experiences that you can have, the more different, that's not exactly the right grammar, but the more places you can do it in. That's not to say job hop. That's not really what I mean, but I do mean really dive in and get a diversity of experiences on your resume is really, really powerful. And it shows you know how to build something, which is also a really, really important talent. And it's something that I look for. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. It was so great to have you on with us. And up next, we have Heidi Seek. She's an award-winning C-level civic entrepreneur and co-founder and chief empowerment officer of Vote Pro-Choice, the political home of the nation's pro-choice majority. Heidi has been working in the intersection of technology, political power, and feminism for over 30 years, with a particular obsession for electing pro-choice champion women in down-ballot races. Professionally, Heidi was the founding chief operating officer of Civic Hall and Democracy.com in New York City, and interim chief operating officer of Rock the Vote in Washington, D.C. She serves on the boards of Rock the Vote Action Fund, Men for Choice, and the 21 in 21 Project to elect women to the New York City Council. She previously served as chair of the board of directors of the National Institute for Reproductive Health. Heidi is also a member of the Women's March Steering Committee, where she served on the original policy table responsible for writing the intersectional unity principles and women's agenda for the Women's March on Washington in 2017. Heidi, thank you so much for being here, and I'd love to turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you for that lovely introduction. And I'm so honored to be on this panel with such amazing partners and friends. Today is a complicated day where we got the SCOTUS decision, and it just reiterates the fact that we have to be acting politically, just as Jenny said and Ashante said, and everyone has talked about here. But I'm really happy to be presenting Vote Pro-Choice. I should say my pronouns are she, her. I'm zooming in from Manhattan, which is the ancestral Lenape homelands and occupied territory. And I originally started Vote Pro-Choice in March of 2016 as a digital voter guide project of Democrats.com LLC with the president, Bob Furtick. What we were doing was trying to help folks who wouldn't finish voting all the way down the ballot. They would vote for Hillary at the top, and then they wouldn't finish their ballot. And so we were trying to give them a nice digital platform to be able to complete their ballot all the way down the ballot through the lens of reproductive justice. So after the outcome of 2016, the Vote Pro-Choice team decided we needed to keep going and to continue to build our program. And over the last 5 years, we become the builders of the largest, most comprehensive, most used voter guide resource in the country. We've distributed over 50 million voter guides and researched thousands and thousands of races. So we know a lot about what's going on down ballot. We also expanded our program to endorse and coach over 750 down ballot pro-choice champions. So I'm really excited to announce today that Vote Pro-Choice is now a PAC and a C4. Serving as the home of the nation's pro-choice majority, and will continue to engage voters and support these candidates in down ballot races, particularly where reproductive freedom is at stake. And I think we can all agree reproductive freedom is at stake, because what we found is if you can go and find a great pro-choice champion who's running for school board or mayor or city council or other local race, as well as state legislature, you find a person who is supportive of progressive issues that are important to all of us: wealth inequality, healthcare, gender parity, racial justice. And for us, down ballot is also going to be incredibly critical as SCOTUS SCOTUS overturns Roe, that means that the enforcement of these pre-Roe trigger bans, which have criminal penalties in them, the elected criminal justice positions in these states are going to be absolutely critical. District attorneys, sheriffs, elected medical examiners, coroners. So we have to be looking at those candidates and making sure we're lifting up pro-choice candidates in all of these spaces. So our 2022 plans are very exciting. We just completed a very deep landscape assessment to pick priority states. We looked at how dangerous is it to be a pregnant person in the state? Is there an abortion ban on the books? What's the average distance to a clinic? Can insurance cover reproductive health care? Does Medicare cover it there? Is there a ballot initiative limiting or expanding reproductive access? What's the political landscape? And we came up with a list of critical states. The top 10 for us are going to be Texas, North Carolina, Ohio, Georgia, Missouri, Iowa, Oklahoma, Arizona, Michigan, and Louisiana. And we want to be out recruiting those down ballot candidates to endorse them, to coach and support them. We need your district attorneys, we need your judges, we need everybody in those places. The other thing that we do is really fun is that we work in partnership. We really do try to make sure that our strategy is enhancing what's already other partners are already doing. So we commit staff time and our energy to working with our partners to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts, we're lifting each other up, and we're supporting candidates that other people may not be supporting. So we're in constant conversation with all of the folks that are on this call, as well as other organizations that are out there. And it's very important to us to be able to be supportive of each other and to create a space where we can be collaborative. I'm very excited that we do host a down ballot table of over 30 organizations so we can be coordinating some of those more local down ballot races across the board, not just with reproductive rights groups, but with social justice and progressive organizations as well. So the other cool thing that we are doing is that we have invented a process that we're called accelerated deep canvassing, which is making the steps of deep canvassing more efficient and cost effective. So we've been working on experimental projects for that, and we are really hopeful that we're going to be able to do some work in Kansas. If anybody's out there, we're looking for a Kansas partner to work on a potentially very innovative deep canvassing project. So right now we are recruiting for candidate coaches. So if you love helping people get elected, particularly down ballot women of color and people who are pro-choice champion candidates, we're your place. We also will have opportunities for research support for both voter guide project as well as endorsement. So if you have a curiosity of how a very elaborate endorsement process works and how we select our candidates, come on down. We love those political analysts. We're your people. And I'll likely have some operations positions in the new year. But I did also want to enhance that we do really center justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in all of our work, particularly with our endorsement process, which prioritizes diversity in our scoring. We boost women of color, people of color, LGBTQIA folks. So if you're a woman of color running on the issue of reproductive justice in a down ballot race, you have a huge advantage going for you in our endorsement process. We think building that pipeline and supporting leaders are really important. And the one thing that we do that's a little different is that we don't actually use a win rate to measure our success. We don't really even say a candidate lost. We will pick future winners if we see someone who's really running on issues, because we know that this is where the world needs to change. So also as a culture for the last 2.5 years, our whole Vote Pro Choice team has been in deep, deep work collectively, diving into justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in all that we do. We remain absolutely devoted to recruiting and employing people through a Jedi lens. And this year we've implemented more transparency practices, particularly around compensation. And we've added far more feedback channels to make sure that the whole team is collectively creating the culture. And we know we always have more work to do, and we're proactively investing in it. And also, as a white woman leader, I personally employ coaches and mentors who hold me accountable and ensure that I am doing my part to create a culture where people are respected and can thrive. So I am really happy to be here. I'm really happy to be able to offer another opportunity for folks, in addition to the amazing partners that have presented here, particularly if you like to work on those down ballot races where we're going to be that's really a lot's going to be at stake once we figure out what's going on with all of this overturn of Roe. So I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Wrap up the call. I'd love to ask you, what's one piece of career advice you'd give to folks looking for that next position?
One piece. Well, I'll first of all say that mentoring and supporting people toward their dreams is very important to me. So I'm definitely a person that listens carefully to all of my team members about their underlying values. And for me, it's been very important as I've gone through in my life to really know what my personal purpose and what motivating values are for me. And I have taken specific time to reflect and ask myself that, because I know that if I'm taking jobs and doing tasks that are misaligned with my underlying values and purpose, then the job isn't going to be fruitful. And particularly when we're working in reproductive rights, it's so hard and so difficult and so challenging every day that in order to stay motivated, it's really important to align with purpose. And what I mean by that is, about 20 years ago, I had just finished a really big project for the city of San Francisco. And it was a huge success. Unprecedented for a young person to do something like that on time, under budget. And I was burned out and miserable. And so I really asked myself, what matters to me? Like, what do I want to be inspired by? And through just a series of reflective questions and exercises and meditation and talking to coaches, I realized that it's very important for me to work on foundational solutions, things that really change the system. And I know any job I've ever taken after that, I've felt a connection to it by understanding that foundational purpose and desire and passion. So I just invite anyone who's out there looking for a job in reproductive rights, health, and justice, who's looking for a job in politics, to know what are those underlying values that you're motivated by, because it will help you decide how to take the next job and to stay motivated in the job that you're in. And of course, if you choose to work with us at Vote Pro Choice, we will have that conversation. And I'm certainly committed to making sure that all of the folks that work on the project, the Vote Pro Choice project, have an opportunity to realize their dreams, realize their purpose, realize their vision, and can thrive.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and congratulations. On this next step, I want to say thank you to all of our speakers. The work you're doing is so crucial. It's so important to protecting women's rights, supporting women, and making sure we elect women to office. I also want to thank our sponsors, ActBlue and Campaign Industries, for sponsoring this plenary and this conference. Also, shout out to ACT TV for being our production crew today. And one last thank you to Amy Pritchard, the founder of Gain Power, for bringing us together and creating this space for us to connect and network with each other. Now, this may be the end of our session, but there are many more to come with this conference. So be sure to register at blue2022.events and follow us with the hashtag blue2022 on social media. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great Powering Blue in 2022 conference.